Welcome to today's Explainer. For years now, our whole understanding of artificial intelligence has been shaped by one very specific, very visible interface, the chatbot. You type a question in, it types an answer out, boom, done. But quietly, right under our noses, this massive unseen architectural shift is happening. We are actually moving away from that basic text generation and entering an entirely new era, the era of structured reasoning and autonomous agentic AI. So today, we're going to unpack exactly what that means. Because the systems being built right now, they're no longer just answer machines. They're becoming full-blown autonomous problem-solving ecosystems. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's start by drawing a really clear line in the sand. That era of simply typing a prompt and getting a fluent and, let's be honest, sometimes completely hallucinated answer, it's already coming to an end. The old AI was built on something called token-by-token prediction. Essentially, it was just guessing the next most likely word in a sentence. And look, it's incredibly useful, it changed the world, but it's also inherently risky. The next AI, though, doesn't just guess. It relies on structured reasoning and collaborative agent ecosystems. It actually breaks down goals, verifies its own evidence, uses external tools, and coordinates with other AI agents to make actual decisions. It's a whole different ballgame. And that brings us to a massive, kind of looming reality. Based on the projections in our sources, up to 15% of our daily work decisions could become entirely autonomous by the year 2028. Which immediately forces us to ask a really tough question. What exactly are we handing over? Because we aren't just talking about having an AI draft a polite email anymore. We are talking about AI autonomously executing entire chunks of real-world, complex work. The stakes here are absolutely massive. So to understand how we actually get there, we need to understand how the architecture itself is fundamentally changing. Which brings us to Act 1, the end of the answer machine. To really appreciate where we're going, we have to take a hard look at the limitations of where we are right now. Current AI works by predicting word after word. That's exactly why it confidently hallucinates when it doesn't actually know the answer. It's literally like a student sweating through a timed exam trying to write an entire essay strictly from memory. I mean, they might get the broad strokes right, but the specific, granular facts could be completely scrambled. Now, in a low-stakes environment, sure, that's just a quirky bug. But in the enterprise world, that is a critical failure. This new AI architecture operates entirely differently. It's moving away from simple generation and toward rigorous verification. It acts much more like a meticulous research analyst, someone who builds out a comprehensive map of claims and evidence before they ever write a single word of the final answer. And that structured approach leads us into Act 2, the rise of argument graphs. If you work in a high-stakes field, think medicine, law, or finance, a hallucination isn't just a bug. It's literally the difference between a profound insight and catastrophic damage. So how does this new AI analyst map things out safely? It uses something called an argument graph. Imagine asking an AI to summarize 300 conflicting medical studies. The old system would just smash them all together and give you a polished, blended answer, completely glossing over all the critical nuances. But the new system? It builds a battlefield. It maps out exactly who claims what evidence supports it, and exactly where these studies contradict each other, long before it ever delivers an output. And our sources point out something truly incredible here. By using these structured representations first, these systems are showing large reductions in token usage, massively lower hallucination rates, and a huge, huge drop in unsupported claims. All right, let's shift gears to Act 3, from prompts to autonomous ecosystems. This is where it gets really exciting. The sources we're looking at suggest that by 2028, a major share of enterprise software will be active and agentic. We're moving from single isolated prompts to entirely autonomous workflows. So how does this actually work step by step in the real world? Unlike a simple chatbot that just spits back text, an agentic AI follows a strict, logical progression. First up is goal setting. It completely understands the desired final outcome. Second, task breakdown. It takes that massive goal and chops it up into manageable chunks. Third is tool calling. The AI actually reaches out into the world to use a calculator, search the web, or query a private database. And finally, execution, synthesizing all that raw work into a polished, finished product. But here is the real kicker. The future isn't just one lonely, genius AI model sitting in a digital room by itself. It is a highly specialized, collaborative ecosystem. Picture it like hiring an entire digital agency. You've got a research agent that goes out and scrapes the evidence, Then a verification agent double-checks all of it for contradictions. After that, a coding agent takes that clean data and builds a visual dashboard. Meanwhile, a writing agent is crafting the executive summary. And finally, you have a QA agent that aggressively checks the entire output before it ever reaches a human's desk. They check each other, they hand off tasks, and they execute these incredibly complex workflows entirely autonomously. Now, with all that autonomy, we have to talk about Act 4. The black box starts opening. For years, AI just handed us outputs, but we couldn't easily peek inside to understand why it made the choices it did. It was a total black box. But think about it. If businesses are really going to trust these autonomous ecosystems to execute high-stakes work, trust requires explainability. You have to know how it got there. This brings us to a really critical concept called mechanistic safety. Researchers are now literally tracing internal AI patterns. They're peering deep inside the network's brain to block unsafe or inaccurate behavior at the representation level, long before the AI ever actually generates an output. Let's use a metaphor to make this concrete. The old approach to AI safety was basically like trying to clean up the smoke after a fire had already started in your kitchen. You're just trying to catch the bad output after the damage is done. Mechanistic safety fundamentally changes the game. It is designed to detect the spark inside the machine before the fire ever catches. It's all about building foundational structural trust directly into the system from the ground up. Which leads us perfectly into Act 5, Digital Twins and Simulations. As these systems become safer and much more autonomous, how do they actually learn to interact with the messy real world? Well, they don't just sit around reading static historical data anymore. They interact inside living, breathing simulations of our world. We call this the autonomous twin loop. Let's take a logistics system or a physical warehouse robot as an example. First, you gather real-world data from the actual warehouse. Second, you build an exact digital simulation, a digital twin of that physical environment. Third, the AI agent trains and practices inside that digital simulation thousands and thousands of times. It learns from its mistakes without risking millions of dollars in physical damage. And finally, through continuous feedback, that vastly improved AI is deployed back into the real, physical world. It's essentially a hyperbolic time chamber for AI training. All right, let's bring it home with Act 6, the future of work. Let's bring this all back to your daily reality. We've explored the architecture, the specialized ecosystems, the digital simulations, but what does this actually mean for you, the human sitting at the desk? This represents a fundamental shift in our entire relationship with technology. Because today, we ask AI questions, but tomorrow, we will assign AI outcomes. Take a specific field, like market research, for example. Agentic AI could fully automate the questionnaire design, do the survey QA, generate the dashboards, and even dynamically probe the respondents. But, and this is absolutely crucial, the critical takeaway from our sources is that the winners in this future of work will not be the teams that blindly automate every single thing. No way. The winners will be the ones who build tight verification layers, structured human review, and deep domain knowledge into these AI workflows. The AI does the heavy lifting, absolutely, but human expertise is what guides and governs the entire ecosystem. Which brings us to this powerful, defining statement right from our source material. The chatbot era made AI visible. The agent era will make AI operational. Think about that. We have literally spent the last few years just marveling at what AI can say. But we are going to spend the entire next decade optimizing what AI can do. So I want to leave you with this provocative reflection as we wrap up today's explainer. The question we should be asking ourselves is no longer, can AI write a better answer? The real question is, which parts of your workflow are you ready to let AI own completely? Because this next generation of AI, it is not going to sit there and wait for a prompt from you. It is going to plan, it's going to verify, it's going to execute, and it is going to learn. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I highly encourage you to start looking at your own daily tasks through the lens of this new agentic future. Catch you next time.